Pokemon games come in all shapes and sizes, which is also the same for their quality. So instead of covering the worst ROMs, let's see how edgy, raunchy, and even despicable Pokemon fan games can be too. Starting strong with the game that begins with a whole train crashing into a station and everyone dying except you, Pokemon Reborn continues that same energy by either keeping up the edge with many too cool for us type of NPCs or edgy player character designs, throwing quips or sex jokes into the dialogue, and so on. Yeah, edginess is cringe and stupid and whatever, but what about the gameplay itself? I hear people who've seen plenty of ridiculous games like Snake would already say. Well, despite initially seeming quite interesting with multiple starters, somewhat modern mechanics, and plenty of choices for paths to go along, not even an hour in the game can start to feel slow and all over the place with where you're supposed to go. Go one way, battle a series of trainers, only to go around in a circle to the place you started. Different path, more waves of trainers, and a dead-end road. When you finally get to the place you have to go, it's time to meet I am superior guy or Marvel quip dialogue girl and sit through vast amounts of dialogue that even the built-in speed up doesn't do justice for. Besides some more issues, like confusing stats UI that I still didn't understand by the end of me playing, confusing bugs like disarming voice being water type, okay, weird balancing like going from level 5 and 7s in one battle, then level 13 in the next one. But at the end of the day, most of this can just be seen as nitpicks or personal gripes. If you would give it a try, there's a good chance that you probably would find some enjoyment from it. Though personally, the confusion of navigating only to always find long, cringy text at the end of it, with some smaller issues along the way slowly building up, ended up making me place Reborn as one of the worst fan games. But hey, at least it doesn't feature Pokemon abuse as much, or crude adult content like upcoming games do. Ah yes, Pokemon Wack, the fan game with a reputation that's equivalent to Snakewood for ROM hacks. Either it's for the game's quality that's all over the place with random play styles, 7-year-olds painting on the fridge levels of sprite work, and of course, the element that no game on this list can exist without, needlessly edgy or trigger for the sake of triggering type of jokes. But don't worry, he's just an upcoming artist that happened to pick a terrible mustache too. Having a good amount of new Pokemon, with some that even have new types at least, gives some extra motivation to get through the game. Like, an actual good amount. But surely there's a point at which it just becomes too much, or there being no need for type X existing when there's already type Y, right? Keeping on with earning its name, Pokemon Wack also has plenty of, well, Wack NPCs like Blaine transporting you to the Vanilla Kanto region in case of you getting too easily triggered, or just randomly having super overleveled Pokemon just because. And of course, the "it's not Adolf because he's actually Zadolf" rival isn't the only joke of that caliber, so expect to see some more batshit insane things from the game that has plenty of poorly aged jokes due to releasing sometime between 2012 and 2015. As an extra negative or positive, depending on how you look at it, you can also stumble onto a Pokemon Wack wiki page that pretty much sums up to be just a shitpost. So be sure to check correctly if you want to find actual useful information. Though, if you're going to the extra length of seeking out material outside of the game, the Pokemon Wack team also has hosted and made it available for the community to contribute resprites for the game's simple fakemon. So if you download the collection and implement them in the files, you can see the fruits of the dedicated fan labor. The so-called jokes and the quality of the game overall can be questionable, but allowing fans to contribute and not abuse their willingness to help, unlike the first place holder, will always be a nice sight to see. Got lucky this time, Pokemon Wack. I could just drop the name PETA with the addition of saying that they made a Pokemon parody fan game, and most of you would instantly get the whole picture. But let's just cover it one more time for the ones in the back that didn't listen even the first 7 times. Just like how the animal rights activist company usually goes too far with getting their message across, only to probably do the opposite, Pokemon Black and Blue is another in the series of crude PETA video game parodies to get people's attentions, which mostly just consists of shock value in the form of a badly simplified Pokemon formula. Now sure, you can make claims that Pokemon itself can have underlying elements of forcing animals to fight against their will, but at the very least it's portrayed to be friendship is magic levels okay in that world. PETA on the other hand, yeah, I'm sure even the build-up was slipping you the answer. Though at least it has the positive of being no longer than 20 minutes, so it already outdoes most of the other games on this list just because of that. But at least they don't have Oshawott blackface. I mean, that's pretty bad. If the very worst thing that you see when opening the game doesn't explain enough already, Entrancing Wishes is yet another case of just badly doing Pokemon, but horny. Even if basing your game on the same idea of the pervert pest ROM that is Psychic Adventures, somehow doesn't already qualify it for one of the worst fan games out there, then I'm sure mentioning that the game is buggy, unoptimized, glitchy, and straight up ugly, with badly compressed art or misshapen sprites being spotted right from the get-go, isn't a surprise for you. Besides the many misdeeds of Gunner-based changes to what is just a bland rehash of Kanto yet again, saying that the balancing of boss, wild, and trainer battles being horrible shouldn't shock anyone either. Whether you go train and level up on the wild level 1 Pokemon, battle with the weak trainer battles for a good few minutes, just to go up a single level, or go right to the boss battle and get beat by a level 9 Hypno that starts the battle with putting you to sleep. The difficulty is all over the place. Seems fair to me. Now, sure, we could blabber on about the shortcomings of the gameplay, but we've done that plenty with the other games I already mentioned. Instead, let's cover the things that make this fan game one of the worst with its unique reasonings, aka the adult content that's bad enough already, with or without poor execution included. Unlike you lucky bastards having everything blurred, the average unfortunate player usually would have to witness the previously mentioned bad art that's probably made by the dev themselves, or poorly cropped and implemented sprites from other places, while having the main appeal done badly too. Add in some more jokes about undressing people while they can't move, such a funny thing, or other forms of similar harassment, call out a dev with adding characters such as Mela, who, let's be honest, possibly can't be any older than 15, yet they say it in the intro that everyone here magically is over 18 years old. And you can start to see the picture for the game's placement here. Doesn't change the intended age of the characters when Game Freak designed them, but lolly freaks will remain lolly freaks. I could go on and on about the degenerate shit, my problems with it and other stuff, but the worst ROM hacks video had me ranting plenty about this game's inspiration already. But hey, at least all of this bullshit hasn't caused issues for real people, unlike the first place holder. Yet, we can discuss it before going over the... Usually, the reason for a game's dialogue being called cringe comes down to it being edgy or something alike. As for Pokemon Uncensored, yeah, how about consistent doses of swearing equals cool and nice character is actually rude instead? Of course, I can't forget to mention also such funny adult jokes like renaming places to, wait for it, Fucksha City, blocking off roads with bunch of drunk old men that have questionable dialogue, making trainers like Misty naked because, and so on. Despite that, at least they did the minimum and actually somewhat redid the map of Kanto. And some lines can be a bit funny, but it still would end up on the worst pile if I did more than 5 in the list. Now I know it's a bit of a controversial take to even do as much as put it on the Dishonourable Mentions, but hear me out. Despite the tried and true case of fan games having shoddily written stories, which Insurgents has to do with cults, killings, headcanons of OC trainers being better than the likes of Cynthia, accidental social commentary and whatnot else in it, the fan game is still an icon of its time that's been an inspiration for many fan games onwards. So its shortcomings are much more understandable than for the others. The game feels a bit bloated and slow at points, while also having Wack balancing to the point of either sweeping with a single Deltamon or struggling against a roided out legendary. But that's a lesser evil in my eyes. Let me say this though. Insurgents did not do regional variants first. They just took the same name Delta mechanic from the TCG side and fleshed it out with new looks for the Mons. But the concept still came first from the trading cards, and I will die on that hill. Now, despite the game on the surface being your usual fine-tuned Pokemon journey, the levels of which the creator attempted to be not like the other fan games is astounding. Do something like ask 5,000 Pokédealers to get a BJ while Nidoqueen watches? Yeah, it speaks for itself. It's not like every single line is this horrid, and the gameplay too is passable at worst, despite frustrating amounts of trainer battles like before with other games, and them having no less than 3 Pokemon for each. Even if the very first impression is a badly pixelated, compressed image of Looker in the intro, the game still is just made by a single developer. So it would be just plain bullying to place it in the actual worst fan game list. At first glance, it may seem a bit shocking for Infinite Fusion to appear on this list, but besides the recent drama in the game's dev team, it probably would have ended up in this video with or without that controversy. At the end of 2024, in the official Pokemon Infinite Fusion Discord, server had the usual announcement of the latest update like usual. Yet this post came with a mention of AI use for the game's dex entries, despite there already being entries in the form of splicing and combining the two Pokemon's entries into one. Now sure, on the larger scale of things, using AI for some entries that majority of players won't even bother reading doesn't seem like much, but the aftermath is what sealed the deal. In retaliation, a good handful of sprite artists decided that their road of contributions to the fan game ended there and requested for their sprites to be removed from the project. Yet, just like it turned out, it happened with another artist by the name of Rush back in 2023, the devs of Infinite Fusion refused to do so, despite them having no rights over contributed sprites, and even stating that you can request your sprites to be removed in the first place. Well, what was the reason for this baby behavior? Just like a fellow YouTuber by the name of Nova Meow came to a conclusion in his coverage video of the whole drama, I fully suggest you check it out, the fan game would be your average Kanto reskin slop without the sprites. or still look quite unappealing with the old OG fusion generator it had ages ago at the worst. Even if you decide to not also mention the game's poor optimization, mishmashed art style, and still remaining bugginess after multiple updates and patches, you would still see that the only redeeming quality about the game is the community that supports it and keeps Infinite Fusion's only real appeal alive. Which is most likely the same reasoning the devs had when refusing to acknowledge the true GOATs that made the game what it is today, and their basic asks of respecting their requests. Sure, the game isn't as cringy, edgy, crude, or whatever reason that the other games ended up this list for, but disrespecting and treating like shit the people who gave your game all the glory and reputation it has in the community just bugs me out like crazy, especially as a sprite artist myself that has even contributed quite a few fusion sprites myself. Say what you want, but basically stealing sprites is a far better reason for it landing as the #1 worst game than the others, which 9 out of 10 times basically boils down to just dialogue cringe, game bad. Shame to see you fall so low, but sometimes it just is what it is. Well, I'm probably going to get burned at the stake soon for my takes, so why not thank the patrons while I still can? It would be cruel not to mention memberships and more my stupid takes over on Twitter too. But that's it from me, stay tuned for more, and see ya.